Okay, we're now recording. Welcome everybody to the September meeting of the North Bay Electric Auto Association. We don't have a presentation today. And if you get bored, I actually have a presentation I did earlier for a reading club on the Bill Gates environmental book, which is a little bit fun. And we could always look at that, or we can talk about how we could fund an electric car that we could all share for those members in the club here in Sonoma County. So let's start with introductions as to who you are and how you get around. And I'm going to go backwards this time. Okay, so Cecilia, you're at the end.
You got me. My name's Cecilia. I think so. We're doing introductions. I drive a 2018 Model 3.
Very good. Have you been driving?
I've actually been driving a bit. I have places I've been going lately.
Oh, good.
So right. Yeah, I'm almost up to over 60,000 miles.
Wow. All right. Hey, Caleb, we don't see you, but we can see you're here.
Yes, I am here. I have a 2015 BMW i3, and I've driven it 2 full charges in the last 6 months.
Very good.
Yeah, I don't drive a lot either.
Yeah. Mark.
I'm still driving a 2013 RAV4 EV, and well, we're still driving, but just around town, just doctor's visits and that kind of stuff.
Cool. Sonia?
Hi everybody, I'm Sonia, and I drive a 2019 Tesla Model 3, and I charge it once a week. I telecommute, and I don't know, I get to Roanoke Park, I get to Santa Rosa, not too far, Marin, that sort of thing.
Brad.
Hi, my name is Brad. I currently drive a 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid. I've driven it about 1,200 miles in the last 6 months or so. So definitely more than Caleb, but less than maybe some other people. And I hope my next car will be an electric.
Yeah. Zeno. Zeno.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm Sandro Siding. I live in Sebastopol. I have a Sapino. Thanks to Jerry, repairing the Sapino was quite an endeavor. As we start touching things, they fell apart. So eventually, I think we figured it out. He and I, he believes the diagram is still wrong. I'm not sure about it. Maybe I trust the Chinese more than Gary does, but yeah. And then I have a bicycle that I use for in town, and I have a Honda Insight, which is, I think, 14 years old now, something like that. And I use that to go to a big city to the exhibit at the Legion of Honor and some other places. Yeah, so that's kind of my mobility at the moment.
Okay. Lowell.
Yes, I drive a 2013 Leaf to somewhat and for kind of around town stuff, but most of my driving is in my 2014 Tesla. I've driven that about 7,000 miles in the past year. Went to Yosemite, went to Long Beach and back quite recently. But mostly it's just I go to my bike rides, which are various locations around the county twice a week, and so that could be around round trips of 30 or 40 miles. So anyway, yeah.
John, your video is frozen, John.
Is it?
Oh, there
I
you go.
don't feel frozen.
Yeah, okay. This could be my bandwidth. This is
So,
bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah,
why.
I'm
Yeah.
John. I
Yeah.
work at Thunderstruck Motors and do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, John. Jerry's frozen.
He's
Jerry.
Hey,
Yeah.
so anyway, I drive a Nissan Leaf converted Geo Metro, and still working on making some progress getting my truck back in, which is a Toyota pickup, and excited about that. Gonna put a Leaf motor in it. So
Ray, you're joining us today. You threatened not to join us anymore.
Stop by to say hello. This is Methuselah. I'm about to get my golf cart out of the garage and drive it from the front of the house to the back of the house.
Yeah, it works.
Nice to see you all.
good to see you, Ray.
Good to see you, Rand.
Bernie, you're up.
Okay, well, nothing's changed at my house. We're still all electric, solar on the roof, Leaf and a Model 3, and I did make 3 trips this summer, 2 trips this summer, one out to Denver and back, and then with a kayak on top, I went out to Grand Tetons Park and did some kayaking out there. So, wow, that putting a kayak on top really drags you down in terms of range.
Okay, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm up here in Friday Harbor, Washington still. I've decided that we've reached a tipping point up here. People got the message about going electric and kind of have a shortage of used cars. So I departed with one of my 6 battery electric vehicles. I had 2 e-Golfs. I got a beat up black one with like 14,000 miles on it, and then found a pristine white one with 58,000 miles on it. So I sold the black one just a couple of days ago to a friend on the island. And the insurance on all these is killing me, and I don't have enough arms and legs to run all of them. So a couple of my vehicles are on hold until we get out of COVID, including the Smith truck, which I've got running, and I exercise periodically by going about 60 feet forward or 25 yards forward, 25 yards back, and still have a couple of things I want to check out before I take it down the hill. I found a place to store it, and the school is back in progress here as of a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what they're doing with the mask situation. I think they're all masked, but the STEM facility teacher is busy as heck, and if I ever get turned loose, I'll try to reconnect with them. But if anybody out there has knowledge of or experience with, I should add that I have a Ranger EV pickup in the garage. I decided that it's going to take me forever to do it myself, as I observed in the shop at Thunderstruck a couple of years ago. But I bought one of the rebuilt packs from Lanny Thomason in Eugene. It's a CALB pack, so it should have about 125-mile range when it's in. And I just stumbled into this totally fortuitous connection, because the way I got the pack back in June, my brother and I went over and visited Lanny, looked at his shop, looked at what he's doing. And I ended up buying the pack, which is not cheap, and then transporting it. I got my brother to transport it to his home about 20 miles from Lanny, near Monroe, Oregon. And then I found a guy up here who does an almost weekly trip just directly back and forth, and was able to deal with the ferry system. He's kind of working with sort of private island transport of things that don't go on the ferry, like propane tanks, and so that worked out just great. It showed up just a couple of days ago and is right in front of my garage door, ready to put in. So I may need a helper for a few things, but I still have this 5-ton jack that Boygan Dunlap sold along with the Ranger EV. That's where it came from. And I also have a RAV4 out in the forest with a tarp over it. So I'm trying to downsize. We're just, Teslas are thick as fleas.
I also had Alan's Roadster up here, and it got to go to a little show over on Orcas and was well received. There was about 200 people that showed up at Opalco's event, and a few folks up here have VW ID4s. So, you know, it's kind of exciting, but I'm still here locked up in my house, and I've reached the tipping point with solar. I think I've banked a bunch of energy for the summer, which will probably get me all the way through the year with maybe a tiny bit surplus. And I've only had to modify my behavior a little bit. It's been extra hot. So instead of using the heat pump to cool, I try to manually open my windows to cool. I beefed up the insulation, and I have heat pumps everywhere, including the garage, which the inspectors later told me you can't, you know, you're not supposed to be able to do that. And I said, well, there's an exception here. So anyway, that's the long-winded story. I'm rambling because my Zoom is likely to cut out because of my poor internet connections up here. So anyway, good to see you all.
Okay, it's good to see you. By the way, the banking on the solar, one of the things that I've learned is this: the major thing that you need to do is insulate. And at that point, the amount of energy to run a house is really trivial. David, you're up.
Well, after all that with Bruce, I got nothing.
I got cars. You want one back?
That's amazing. Yeah, that's good stuff. I finally got my 85 Avante running here in Fairfield, and I probably put, I don't know, 20, 30 miles on it, just kind of testing it around the last week or so. So it's back on the road. Hopefully I want to get enough miles on it so that I can, I'm actually trying to put miles on it so I can check the charging system and see if that's working correctly. But rides a lot better. The battery pack in the back doesn't bounce up and down when I go over bumps and stuff. So that's encouraging. It's a little quieter inside from all the banging and stuff that was going on before. So we'll see what happens.
And I'm Jerry Glazer, and I'm still driving my Nissan 2018, and I managed to get my lease extended finally up till December 1st, because it still is difficult to find an EV that you can lease or purchase now because the inventories are so low. I'm still trying to see if I can get into a Kia Niro 2022, but they don't even have the 2020s in stock at this point. I did get to drive this last month hang on a second. Hey, Ray, you want to mute? If you mute, then we won't have that. I did get to drive the ID4, and I was, to be honest, as an EV driver, I hadn't realized that out of the last 23 years, 17 of them, we've been driving electric vehicles. So we're so used to driving electric vehicles. The ID4 drives just like an internal combustion SUV on purpose. And I kept looking for one pedal driving. I kept looking for hill hold. I kept looking for, and the sales guy didn't even know what I was talking about. And if you go, you find that Volkswagen actually did this on purpose to penetrate the internal combustion engine SUV market. So I've become a lot less interested, even though it's a very nice car, of the ID4. And all of my friends keep telling me, go get a Tesla, but all you guys have Teslas, so I gotta get something different.
A Tesla's, you can't get delivery on one for about 6 months.
Yeah, well, that's actually shorter than some of the other cars.
Powered ones.
My son is going to get a Mustang. So that's what he's really looking at now. Anyway, he's pretty serious about it, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about, people getting new cars. And when we get to, our next meetings, we should talk about reviewing them.
Yeah.
Good idea. I was going to bring that up.
And I've had a number of people contact me asking about EVs who are now switching to EVs and want to know, well, which one should I get? And they have like 3 on their list. You know, the Tesla, the Ford, and the GM. And I'm going, you know, there's a lot more EVs out there for you to look at. What do you like to drive?
So you know what, Sonia, when you put together that presentation on you know the EVs you were looking at the time, I kept a copy of that, and since then, several people have come to me asking that question. You know, what should I get? And I have given them a copy of that, saying that's what's out here right now. This is a pretty good analysis of the pros and cons. I think we should do that again.
Yeah,
I think in fact the club should have, maybe it could be on our website or something, should have a spreadsheet or whatever, or some type of presentation of what is on the market you can buy today here in Sonoma County, and whether it's pros and cons and costs, and et cetera.
We a couple of meetings back, I pulled up from the Central Valley what they will give rebates on in the Central Valley, and they had about 40 different vehicles that they had listed that were straight EVs. One thing, Lowell, is that Plug in America has a really nice sheet as well. And Cecilia is the one who turned me on to that handout a few years ago. And I keep looking at that to see what's out there. As you saw in the last meeting, with the California Air Resource Board regs that are about to get approved, we're going to see a lot more long-range EVs, simply because to be classified as a EV from a manufacturer's point of view for California, you have to have a certain range, you have to have a certain power rating, you have to have certain charge cables, et cetera. And all of those are going to make the vehicles a lot more attractive. And so you're right, it's a good thing for us to have another review.
Right, and to educate ourselves also. Yeah.
The general club stuff, I attended another one of the EAA Central Club meetings. I'm probably not going to any more because, as Alan warned me, they were pretty boring. We still have 36 paying members, and several people have renewed in the last month. And we have 144 different people subscribing to the group that we send our messages out on. Just remind everybody, send me more articles or send us more articles. It's for the NBEAA team. When we put the presentation together, I'll send a message out shortly after the meeting. It'll look like this one, and you can respond back on that, or just write to NBEAA-team. The way Google Groups has changed now, it doesn't make any difference whether we collect it under one message or it just shows up. I have to reorganize it anyway. And we need speakers. We do have a speaker for December. And one of our members is going on a road trip, and he said, would you like me to report on the road trip? And I said, yes, please. So we have something for December. We don't have anything yet for October, and we don't have anything for November. And there's a lot of really interesting topics. I almost want to play the video from the StorageX presentation by the QuantumScape CTO, because he did a really good job talking about the study work that they did, and why they did what they did, and what they believe is going to happen, and what they think the challenges are going forward. So if you guys are interested in that, then I could pitch that up for a future meeting. The video for last meeting is here. I'll post this presentation shortly after the meeting. And it also has the links for the previous presentation. Having our YouTube channel is kind of fun. We only get about 10 to 15 hits per meeting, but we now have something like 15 two-hour meetings posted in YouTube. So we have about 30 hours worth of the NBEAA out there. We're not returning to the Thunderstruck. I've been looking at the numbers. We are finally in the right direction in Sonoma County. We went from 40 infections per 100,000 a week ago down to 18 infections per 100,000. When we thought we were going back to Thunderstruck, we were at 4 infections per 100,000 and going down. And then it turned around almost immediately. Today, the infection rate is close to what it was in August of last year. So we'll see what happens. And when we do meet in person, we're going to require everybody to be vaccinated. to meet in person. Otherwise, we'll keep doing the video portion. We'll find out how to do this. So we'll have a hybrid meeting. Name change. Did you all get, anybody who's a paid member, Electric Auto Association wanted to change the name to the Electric Vehicle Association for the expansion and scope. Personally, I voted no, because I thought the name's been there. There's no reason to change the name. You can change the scope without changing the name. And the reason that I also thought was, well, you know, we got the group, it's the NBEAA, and we've got our new YouTube, and we got the new webpage that'll be up eventually, a new home, and all of those are NBEAA. So I think, and this one of the discussions I'd like to have is, if they change the name to EVA, do we want to change our name? And it actually is an issue with that, because part of the charter for the NB and for EAA is that someplace in our name we must have EAA. And now if they change it to EVA, they're going to require every chapter to change their names. Any thoughts on that? Anybody have opinions?
I hope they don't change their name, and then we won't have to do anything on our end. I feel like there's other bigger fish to fry.
That's the way I felt about it as well. Did everybody get solicitation to vote on that?
I didn't know.
No,
I didn't.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I think I did, but I.
Well, maybe I didn't, but misreading it. I don't know. But anyway, I am in agreement with you, Jerry. I think that there's no compelling reason to change it, and that you know, people will understand that yes, buses and other things and trucks are included, and so you don't need to really you know, make that distinction. It just people, a lot of people just they you know, those are the initials. They don't really ever translate them into the actual words they mean.
Right. And only John and I have a problem with EAA, because at one time or another, I'm sure he's belonged to it too, belonged to the Experimental Aircraft Association. Because the real, if you look for EAA, that's what will pop up. Yeah, so we might just have to do something like this. I think they have decided they're changing the name of the club, of the international one. And we might have to change any of our signature stuff to say NBEAA, a chapter of EVA, which is essentially what plugin does as well, I think, because plugin is a chapter of EAA, isn't it, Cecilia?
Oh, I'm not aware about that.
Oh, okay. Okay, going on to
I think
events.
that's true.
Yeah.
I wanted to add that you know, the auto is really short for automobile, which is anything that is mobilized with something powered, right? I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, it's just, to me, it's silly. It's like, you know, I don't even think Electric Vehicle Association rolls off the tongue well, and I also don't think EPA is very. It sounds like, you know, some kind of sunscreen or extra vehicular activity. You know,
Yeah, right.
like,
Exactly.
why?
Well, look, so the international leadership at this point is very excited that we got rid of the newsletter, and very excited that the name is now going to change. So there's the two things which I'm going, wait, the thing that I read religiously, even more than Scientific American, was the EAA newsletter. And now they said, oh no, now you can read it on your phone. I said, yeah, right. So, you know, I would scribble on the little black and white, you know, even when it was color was great. And even in black and white, I got used to it. So I'm kind of disappointed. But yeah, I think, John, unfortunately, I think the train has left the station, because they sent out a, hey, yeah, great, we're going to change the name. Well,
I think they're just trying to capture a larger audience. You know, it's like we're already captive.
Yeah,
they're trying to expand their range, because I think one of the comments in the discussion about the name change was they want to incorporate like micro mobility and other forms of mobility, and so it's like, but by that definition, they should be changing it to the Electric Mobility Association now.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can tell from our club, you know, we talk about those things. We even talk about electric airplanes because some of our interests as well. So, the name did not constrain us. Maybe the mission should have been rewritten and not the name, but train has left the station.
Yeah, let me, so I have had this problem in other organizations.
Yeah.
And sometimes what they do, they keep the acronym, but stop using the full title. So the acronym becomes kind of the marker of the mission, and the mission is expanded. I think that in itself is a good thing, because people are moving away from bigger cars, I think, eventually, and interested more in transit, electric transit, micromobility. So that would be one way to go, that we keep the acronym, but we not really emphasizing the automobile. The other thing is you could find, if you want to keep the acronym with the A, you could start being creative and think about a word that starts with A and that covers the mission. So if there's any word, person, or a poet in the group, they could work on that.
Electric activity.
Electric activity associated. Yeah. I also spend time through the Climate Center on an initiative for community energy resilience. And one of the members of the cohort that I belong to is Gopal, and he is hosting in Napa, so it's close to many of us, Drive Electric Day. That's going to be on September 26th at 1 p.m. at the JC in Napa. So if anybody's interested in that, and in fact, they actually have signups also if you want to display. Okay. News and interesting stuff. Caleb, do you want to speak to this? Did you read the article deeply that you sent to me?
If I did, it was a while ago.
But it's always a while ago. All right, I'll talk about it. Lease versus buy. This is very interesting. And since I'm leasing my 2018, but about my first EV, turns out 80% of EVs are leased. And that's in contrast to 30% of internal combustion engine vehicles are leased. So all of us are looking for, what's new, what's going to change next. I don't think it's a hesitancy as to the viability of the vehicle. It's, wanting to try what's showing up next as well. Tesla lease rates, on the other hand, are someplace between 3 and 9%. So they've been selling their vehicles. And the rate of leases in this one article was talking about that's impacting somewhat the availability of used EVs. Speaking to, and in a couple of articles that I read, a lot of the EVs, most of the EVs, or the large portion of the EVs, are leased and sold in California. But after they come off the lease, other state dealerships are buying them because they're reasonably inexpensive and they move them out of state. And so having a used EV in California is sometimes more difficult because our inventory is lower compared to the number of EVs that we normally get. Resale on non-Teslas is lowered due to availability. Yeah, somebody jumped in.
Well, one thing I wanted to comment on this is that, maybe if you looked at the lease by the car's range, I think a lot of shorter range cars were being leased pretty heavily. Things like that would affect it.
I mean, just from my personal experience, I leased both the Leaf and my BMW because the residual values on them just tank.
Yeah.
And so the leases were very attractive. The expectation that if I wanted it at the end, I could get a good deal on it. Whereas Tesla is not. When I looked at Tesla leases, they lease for either the same or more than what they sell them for. So there's no real value in the lease because you're not getting any sort of savings.
Right.
And because they hold up their values so well, it made more sense if I was going to go that route to just buy.
Yeah, and we're going to see on the next slide, as well as on this slide, a part of your thought, Caleb. You look at the chart here in the right-hand side. It's showing how the used EV prices are starting to go up, there was a discussion about how much the vehicles lost their value. On the left-hand side here is the percentage difference between used and new. Now you can find the Teslas on the right-hand side of that curve. There's very little difference. On the other hand, if you look at the BMWs, there's a tremendous difference. The Leaf is someplace in the middle. The Ford is over on the left-hand side as well. So we're seeing a balance as it's trying to figure out what the market looks like. Now, buying a used Tesla, it turns out Tesla itself sells 12% of all the used Teslas. They're not sold through other dealerships or individuals. Carvana is selling the most of the Model 3s. The Teslas are really, as you said, Caleb, are really holding their value. One friend of mine always buys a used vehicle, and he insisted on buying a used Tesla. So he paid, I think, $1,800 below the new Tesla price for a 2-year-old Tesla with 25,000 miles on it. And I said, why would you do that? He said, well, because I buy used vehicles. It's proven. Anyway, people are willing to pay more to buy from the factory, is what it's turning out to as well. And Tesla is probably the first of the companies to turn around and say, oh, we're going to sell from the factory. Tesla's also bundling things with the used vehicles. So for instance, if you buy a used Model 3 from them, they bundle in the full self-drive into the vehicle, even if it didn't have it before. I couldn't figure out the answer on this one. Caleb, you sent me a correction on this as well. I've seen 2 articles saying, hey, the Tesla Class 8s are on the road or just about on the road, and other ones saying it's going to be later. They're waiting for the 4680 batteries.
So they want to build these out of the Texas factory, and so they are gearing up for that to be the 4680 battery kind of vehicle production location.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't quite finalized that, battery architecture, if you will, and so they're a little bit delayed. And so they do have limited trials of the Semi going out this year. However, they are not the 4680 battery version. The other thing they're running into now is their factory is not done, and because of the chip shortage, they're also having to decide what they're going to build.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's probably not going to be the Semi.
Yeah. The one article that I did read, following up on what you sent to me, did talk about they are on the road, but Tesla's using them internally for all of their long haul work.
Yep.
And also another article I found, I don't know if I have an article on this, they're having problems with the 4680 batteries, not with the battery itself, but with going to production. This is the same thing I heard with QuantumScape, that their next challenge was, how do you go from making a few and now go into a production model and the equipment that we need and how we get the quality to stay up. One of the things that was curious in one article I read on the 4680, I was used to this from having worked in the semiconductor field, was yields. Well, in the 4680, they're actually quoting their yields. And I may be talking sooner than I should. I may have an article in here too, I don't remember. I got an email from EVgo. They, starting this week, they're changing how they charge for charging. So DJ had a hard time with my title. EVgo changes charging method. It's not a typo. Yesterday, I was down in Oakland and I stopped at an EVgo charging station, which bothered me because they don't have a sign saying where the station is. So I drove past it 3 times, but they had 6 large 50 kilowatt charging fixtures in a lot. And that one actually charged by the minute. So they'll be changing. So they wanted to change this, they said, because they have stations between 50 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt. And if I charge you by the minute, that doesn't make much sense, does it? And the vehicle capabilities are different as well. Now, there's one other reason for that. Over the next 9 years, at different thresholds, the state of California is requiring every one of the companies providing charge stations to change the method that they use for collecting fees, until they all will be collecting fees based on the kilowatt hour. So it's like pumping gas. When you pump the electricity, you'll pay for the electricity plus whatever the premium is on top of that. There'll no longer be so much for sitting here at the parking space. So it's, they may find a different way to do that, but because they want you to get out of the space. But with the quick charges, the state has now decided, and it starts first with personal vehicles and stations, and works its way up through larger and larger facilities. Also, the rates will be
Jerry,
different.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That once it's standardized, you could imagine a gas station style digital sign above it telling you what the rate is.
What the rate is.
In a standardized way.
And you're going to see that, and that's really actually the next bullet here, because in Los Angeles and San Francisco, the rates will be different than they are in other places, and they are allowed to change the rate during the day because of time of use plans. I saw this with gasoline outside of in Sparks, Nevada, years ago. Was that on Sundays before church, the rates were low at the gas station, and then after church let out, the rates went up because everybody was stopping gas up their cars when they left church. And it actually went up 5 cents a gallon at the local station. Okay, that's that one. I think I covered that. Who sent me the article on BMW's behind the EV curve? Did anybody know? Remember? Well, this was another one article saying, well, BMW, you haven't said anything about phasing out gasoline powered cars, and you haven't said what you're doing. And so there was an extensive series of articles. In the i3, they introduced carbon fiber, aluminum chassis. What the one article said was that i3 broke the bank. That is, it cost them more to make that vehicle than they sold it for. So it was too expensive. So they went back to the drawing board. They're actually designing their own chemistry for their batteries. So they said they've been very active and expect the cost for gas models to be higher than EV models by 2025 with the vehicles that they're trying to introduce. By the way, 17% of new car sales in Europe this year were EVs. And this is because of the regulations that are in Europe now as far as carbon. The other thing that in the article from BMW, we slowed our development because we're trying to figure out what EV drivers actually want. And we think that's developing. Sonia, you sent this one.
Yeah, I got this from my Tesla friends who are interested in swapping out tires. I was remembering our Enzo tire talk, and thought it was interesting that they, were using a new formulation and making some really strong statements like reduction in road noise and also lower rolling resistance that would extend your range. I don't know over what. I looked in the data to see, like, would you extend your range over what? Like, would it be the last tire that they created, the Primacy, line of tires or something? So, if anyone knows any more than I do. But these are starting to get sold.
Yeah, and I tried to dig in further because I saw the one place where it says in their announcement, it can extend the range by 60 kilometers. I'm going,
That's what
what
I
does that
saw.
mean? What percentage is
I'm
that?
gonna get those from my i3.
That got exciting. Yeah.
I can get extra 60 kilometers on my i3 from putting new tires on it. I'm sold.
Yeah, I
There you
know. So anyway, actually, it was interesting because when I read the article, the things that I didn't think about, I know that when I got my first EV, it had special tires on it. The Leaf 2011 model had special tires on it. But this one, Michelin's looking at it and they go, higher weight, the weight distribution is different. You want lower rolling resistance. And because the car is so quiet, it has to be a quieter tire because the tire's the noisy part on the road, not the drivetrain.
Do you know
Anyway,
they actually insulate the tires on the Model X and the Model Y? So that like inside that there's actually like a foam noise deadening layer inside the tire to reduce road noise.
I also say they were CO2 neutral, but they're doing that by paying into carbon funds. And it was nice that they worked this out on the track, which is the way things used to be done. Did somebody else send this to me too, or is this another one that popped up?
I sent it to you.
Okay, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. I was curious about this, to the Tesla truck delay, et cetera. StoreDot, they manufacture in Israel. It seemed like they grabbed the concept of a 4680 battery right away and developed their own. And the thing I'm not really clear on is that StoreDot uses a continuous tab design, whereas Tesla uses a tabless design. So those are very different approaches, I guess, in terms of how they hook up. But the StoreDot batteries, look like they're moving along pretty well. And then I had also seen a China battery company that provides batteries for a few different Chinese car makers, had also announced over a year ago, we'll make a 4680. So I guess it was more like the concept and the structure, and then you have to kind of like figure out all the details. And so they're all kind of starting to standardize around this size.
Part of what I watched the video, actually I dozed through the video, but the parts of the video I stayed awake for, 10-minute charge to 100%.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing was it's a silicon dominant anode. Now, remember from a previous presentation we did, the problem with silicon is it expands so much as you throw the ions into the lattice. I couldn't tell from the video how they solved the problem. But they have a large amount of silicon in there instead of carbon. And they're talking about doubling range for the same weight because of how efficient the batteries are, or as far as weight.
That's what got me excited is over the next 2 years or however long it takes to get these out, you're going to see like kind of a stepwise change that's going to be super significant. And this is why they wanted to save this for larger sized vehicles like the semi, but also the Cybertruck was my understanding. The Cybertruck is delayed so that they can use these batteries versus loading it with.
That's right up here on the presentation. Also, this is where I do remember they talked about the yields are 70 to 80%. So that's too low a yield to be cost effective. They got to push the yields up in the 90% range. That means also a lot more testing, right? Because you can't do sampling when you've got a 70 to 80% yield.
Can somebody explain what is a 4680?
Oh, so a 4680, essentially the batteries that Tesla uses today kind of look like AA's, just about the same size as a AA battery. And Caleb's eyes just rolled up. That's about right, isn't it?
The 2070 is a little bit bigger now,
Yeah.
but it's essentially like the measure is it's basically 46 millimeters by 80 millimeters. So it's a diameter of 46 and a height of 80 is what the numbers translate to.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's a shape, but really it's the manufacturing process that differs more significantly than the actual layout for this particular cell.
Yeah. So you're gonna get the same, you'll get the same power, basically same energy, same power out of the battery, but you get more energy out of the battery because you're storing more electrons essentially inside of a package. And a lot of the cost for energy density has to do with the packaging. So this changes the packaging more than anything else.
Yeah. And their what they call their tabless design also increases their capacity for power output, because the access to all the material through the battery is through basically a continuous space. You know, they call it tabless, but it really is more like a continuous tab type of design where you get access to every layer, whereas it used to be much more limited to like the center of the battery. And then it had to like travel through the layers of wound material. And now it's like the tabs are across the entire surface. You're accessing the whole cell all at once. So you get a lot more power capacity because of that.
This also explains why they can charge faster, because from the Storage X series, that's a wonderful series, by the way, I keep saying that. I learned that the reason that charging takes the amount of time it does is that as you pack the ions onto the one side, eventually it's like packing up a bag of kind of a fluid thing, and you got to keep pushing stuff down further and further and further. If you get more and more access to the face and you don't have to push everything in so far, you can charge faster, because the first part charges really fast. It's the other stuff that goes on later on that slows down more and more and more, is just trying to find more spaces to go into and push the other stuff out of the way, other ions out of the way. And that's the hand waving description of how a battery works.
And Zena was going to ask how many per car, like if you took a couple hundred of these or 500 or 1,000 of them for a semi trailer or something.
I don't have the number.
Yeah, I don't recall the number. I know that
somebody can do a fast web search. Yeah, how many 4680s replace existing batteries?
I know that the semi is supposed to come with there's a 300 kilowatt hour and a 500 kilowatt hour version.
But the question is, how much more efficient is this as far as, and well, actually, you should be able to answer the question because it has the energy density. I don't have it. 56 cost. I don't have the weight reduction. Does it have the weight reduction?
The weight reduction comes from both the repackaging and also because they're making it a structural part of the system.
Yeah, but for stored at, that wouldn't be the case. Stored dot,
right?
Typo here.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a difference, and I think they did talk about what the change would be. Zeno, the other thing is that on many of the batteries, they're not in this format at all. They're in a different package format, which is a flat pack or whatever else. And if you look at the way that Quantum Scape is planning on doing it, they'll be in. I just lost the word. What's the name of the package? There's two types. Oh well, we need another battery presentation, I think.
So it looks like, so here's a brief article from Monroe estimating that with the 4680s, that there would be a 30 to 40% reduction in total quantity.
Okay.
And I just
like 960 cells in a Model 3.
In a Model 3 right now, there were like, it's listed as 6,800 cells right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
That's right. That's about right.
For yeah, the 2070s.
This one I ran into because it came through RMI. RMI sponsors this along with a bunch of others, including Shell. It was an electric boot camp that ran from April through August. I've now captured links to all of the videos. I plan on watching the 10 hours worth of them and all the presentations. And there were 48 experts with 1,500 participants training the participants at 13 different sites on how to change their fleets to electric, including driving, what's it like in the facility, et cetera. And during this month, for a 3-week period, they're running test runs. So down below, I show the variety of who's doing it and what different vehicles they're doing. So this will be interesting to look at. But it's showing us now that things are getting more and more serious about delivery fleets and larger vehicles as well, and now moving from cars into changing fleets as well. I saw this one, I get a Stanford newsletter, battery with 6 times the capacity. This has to do with sodium chloride, back with what we had seen with the batteries Caleb and I had worked with. They ran across something in their chemistry. It turns out a lot of the chemistry in batteries has to do not with a chemical reaction, but with the physical structure of the matrix that the material makes. And that's where a lot of the Stanford research is in shaping of the materials. And they found by this change with chlorine atoms that they could, in the same package, hold 6 times as much charge. Now, there's always compromises, and their compromise here was they can only charge it 200 times and get this kind of capacity, which is where we were about 15 years ago with lithium batteries. And so they have every confidence they'll eventually come with more solutions. So this would take 1,200 milliamp hours per gram, and it holds that versus what you would with a typical lithium today of 200 milliamp hours per gram. It still is a lithium chemistry, but with a different lattice. And they expect to find this in hearing aids first. So basically, you don't have to change your battery. When my dad was alive, it was every time we went to a meal, Tina, where are my batteries? I had to keep changing the batteries because he couldn't hear what was going on. So that'll be one of the first places, remote controls. And the other place where it'll be targeted is satellites. It turns out a lot of satellites become defunct because the rechargeable batteries lose their capacity over time. And so we have a lot of junk flying around the Earth that they're usable. It's just the batteries don't work anymore. And it's not worth sending somebody up to go replace the battery. I don't know how to say this. Exos, is that how you say it? They just got an order for 120 FedEx trucks. Now, they're not really for FedEx, they're for FedEx ISPs. I didn't realize that a lot of the trucks driving around that say FedEx on them are independent service providers, kind of like, chains.
Specifically ground.
Especially ground, yeah. And they used to use the Postal Service, but they're moved away from it and do these contracts instead. This is part of FedEx's 2040 plan to be carbon neutral by 2040. And it's focused on last mile. And I saw this one, aircraft manufacturers trying to go green. And this is NBEAA, who do a number of different aircraft that are used for commuters. And they also do aircraft for spray farm, what's it called? I lost the term, John, where you spray the garden.
Crop dusting.
Crop dusting, thank you. Oh, it's right there, okay. So they're testing it. They had switched everything to ethanol so that they would be out of the oil industry, but now they're working on EVs and with a custom motor from WG. That's the fourth custom motor that I've now seen where the electric motors are being designed for aircraft that don't use the same ones we use in cars and in machines. And instead, they're looking at what the demand is in an aircraft. Next month, I'll try to dig up some more material on Wright Aviation down in Mountain View, who's now been developing electric motors for commuter aircraft with capacity of 120 seats. And it'd be interesting to find out what the details are on that. Oh, and this one was interesting to me too, because I saw this article. This is they were demonstrating flying these Pipistrel electric planes, which they want to use for training. And this is actually in the hangar next to where I have my radio work done down in Fresno. This guy has 4 electric planes that he bought. He bought them for training. And he knew he could have them certified here in the US in a matter of months. It's now been 4 years because the regulations are so far behind. In Europe, they use these planes for training. You can reduce the cost of flying and training by $40 to $50 an hour as a result of using an electric airplane instead of a gasoline-powered airplane. And as a flight instructor, I can tell you the things that the students need to learn most in the beginning is where the ground is. It's usually as a student, the ground is either 20 feet above where it actually is, or it's 20 feet below where it is. In both cases, it's very exciting. This was supposed to be a 120-day process. Like I said right here, he's been working on this since 2019. Now he's doing longer flights. He actually has somebody with a charge station that drives up to meet him from airport to airport to recharge the plane. It turned out the major issue turns out that in the regulations, it talks about things that have to do with cylinders. What's the compression ratio or whatever else in order to certify certain kinds of planes. So all of that stuff needs to change. I just was curious because we run into this a lot. We have regulations to make things safe, regulations to constrain things. We are so into using gasoline and fuels to do everything that our regulations are like that. And I keep wanting to look at the building code as well for the same reason. Okay, that is the end of the first part of the meeting with no presentation. And we can have a discussion now on how we might do the truck thing, or I can do a presentation. Okay, Sonia, you have the floor.
I wanted to just, maybe this will just be a warm-up conversation. I read recently that the Tesla Model 3s in the US are going to be like the ones in China and use the LiFePO battery. Like, so my understanding is it's a heavier battery and they're going to do that for standard range because it's cheaper but heavier, and you know, maybe you'll still get 240 miles out of it or something. Has anyone heard anything about that?
By the way, that's the first time I ever heard it called a LiFePO.
I don't know, what do you call it?
It's a lithium iron phosphate.
Yeah, but let's not say all that, right?
It's a lot better than lipo, which is wrong. You know, but it is a lithium iron, you know, which is Fe, PO4. So that's like
LiFePO4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life
Well,
before.
Tesla had announced earlier that their target in one of their battery days, their target for the $25,000 EV would be a lithium iron phosphate battery model, and that it wasn't intended for long range for exactly what you've identified. The energy density is not as good. Now, what's on the side of my house is lithium iron phosphate, and it was more expensive than NMC for me to put in. I could have put in Tesla batteries and they probably would have been half the cost, which is curious because the manufacturing cost for lithium iron phosphate is much lower, and the material cost for lithium iron phosphate is much lower than for NMC. And
so Tesla cuts out a lot of middle people, and my guess is that it's the middle people that mark that stuff up, right?
it's a combination of the middle people that mark stuff up, but the major thing that Tesla has done that hasn't happened in the lithium iron phosphate yet is volumes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the example that Caleb and I ran into once was we were getting power units from somebody for the buses and trucks, and we bought one and it was $1,700. So then we bought 6, and Ernie bought 6, and they were $600 a piece. So if you buy in volumes, and the guy who was manufacturing the batteries said, I'm only buying 10 tons at a time and of nickel to make the batteries, the nickel sodium chloride batteries. And he said, if we can get the volumes up, I can get my nickel cost down by 50%. So volume makes a big difference. It's a combination of the middleman and volumes.
Yeah, just be like, it's kind of fascinating times if you get, the volumes going on the, the 4680 format and, other formulas and so forth. They might just undercut themselves a little bit at some point.
An interesting thing with the lithium iron phosphate batteries is that they are less volatile than other batteries. So you can actually charge them to 100% and they won't, eventually catch fire.
Yeah, they have a flash point of 1400 degrees versus the flash point in the NMC of 450 degrees. And so the fire control is less. The other thing, the reason that I went for those, besides that, the studies that I saw was that the lifetime on lithium iron phosphate is more than twice as long as the NMC.
Cycle life on those is between 3,000 and 5,000. Much higher, much higher.
Well, Tesla announced that those new batteries were only going to cost the car about 10 miles of range.
That's what I understood too.
Out of 250, that's not that significant.
Yeah, it really isn't that bad at all.
And I understand they're going to use them in power walls going forward. So that sounds like a smart, changeover. And if you're the marketing person, you can talk about lifetime, which I really like.
Look, it's in that case, I'm sorry that I put the batteries in because I probably could have saved about $10,000 or $15,000 by waiting for Tesla to finally run those out.
Everything's about waiting, though.
Hey, could I add something? Hello. The lithium iron phosphate thing not being as flammable. I know everybody says that and everything, but isn't it odd that in my experience with batteries, I've seen, 3 or 4 battery fires with lithium iron phosphate, and I have seen none with the LMC type. It's just
John, it's because you're in a lab trying to light them on fire. I mean,
oh, that's it.
Of course, you're gonna see them burn more often. I think people take for granted the what is considered a safer chemistry, and and as a result, they beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Well,
I have that same chemistry that I put in my Beetle, and at the time of doing it, it was not uncommon to bottom balance a pack and not run in BMS and just charge them up to full, every time you use them. And of course, now I wouldn't do that, but at the time that was common practice, and as a result, there was, you always have a bad cell eventually, and those are the ones that catch fire.
Yeah. It's interesting how there's such an argument between, or there used to be an argument between, do-it-yourselfers about bottom balancing versus top balancing, which is, trying to get the pack equalized at the bottom of the charge state or the top. I've never really thought that the bottom balancing was a great idea, because then you lose track of what happens when they're at the top, which is where they all spike in voltage and start dissipating energy. when they're charging. So,
Yeah. Dissipating energy, that's a nice way to stay ketchup on fire.
yeah. Oh, reaching the flash point.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they go, it's pretty nasty, like little rocket engines.
So has anybody else thought about the idea of the club finding a way of funding a pickup truck that we could use here in the county that would be an EV pickup truck? All my neighbors have pickup trucks in their driveways.
Well,
and they're always in their
I had a pickup truck in my driveway, except I was, considering, potentially donating it. But since as time passed, I really wanted to get rid of it, so I wound up donating it to the climate center, and so I figure that's going to represent the carbon offset for the remaining miles on that vehicle, which are probably considerable. And it gave them a nice hunk of money, so I was happy to do that. But it's not mine anymore. So anyway, it was something I was urgently wanting to do, and I did.
Oh.
That's a happy conclusion on that one, but I like the idea of having a shared truck. Right now, my neighbor has a Tacoma like you had, Lowell, and it's a 90s Tacoma, and we take it to the dump, every couple of months or something like that. Or, it'd be nice to have something that you could use that was electric, though.
Well, yeah, one thing I like about it is that getting the publicity for if we have a truck that's shared, then it's going to get driven a lot and people will see it. That's great. I am a little concerned about thinking of doing a conversion because of my experience with conversions and how much dang effort they take, and then how they tend to be unreliable, and then different people using it, you're going to get different use scenarios, and you're going to start having to deal with downtime. I'm wondering if there would be any reasonable effort to try to get a production EV pickup from Ford or Rivian or something as a promotion for them, and they give it to us. I mean, I'm serious. It's just like, what a good way to get a truck out there seen by the public.
Well, I would not say no to that. I was thinking much lower end, like, what if we got an old Kia Soul that gets 80 miles and rip the back out a lot, and
that was my thought.
Yeah, it cut it down even. That would be a fun thing that wouldn't shift the actual battery, system.
Like I'm sure several of you have seen the Truckla, which was a Model 3 that was cut down.
Yeah.
I feel like that sort of conversion is the, mechanically, a mechanical conversion of an existing EV is going to be much more reliable than a EV conversion of a combustion engine truck.
Right.
Yeah, and the other step that, again, we've had experience with before was when the company that Caleb and I worked for, they wanted to do EV conversions of existing trucks. In fact, the state of California gave you a bunch of money to do exactly that. And they were never as good as building it from scratch. And they had
lots of problems.
Right.
All 12-volt problems, but all problems.
Bruce, jump in there.
Yeah, I had a question sort of related. So if anybody's interested in ever converting one of the Ranger EVs using Lanny's rebuilt pack, he's got a license to import these Chinese LiFePO or lithium iron phosphate batteries, and he's got the labeling, and apparently he's got a deep pocket backer that's helping him with this, and he's had up to 27 of these pickups in his yard at one time. But my question is about, I noticed the Smith truck and the Ranger EV, which were built as electric, have these kind of black, they look like they're made out of fiberglass. And I assume that when they built these, they had some concern about safety and car crashes and stuff like that. I'm just wondering, I think I'm going to be very cautious about keeping one of these vehicles in the garage. The Smith won't fit in my garage, but the pickup does. And I'm just wondering what one might expect if there was a battery fire inside one of these pods. And sounds like the main, the main way to deal with it is just to, douse it with as much water as you can get and not breathe the fumes. Anybody have any experience on that?
I don't think the fumes are dangerous either. It's just a matter of getting it cold enough. Are the fumes dangerous? Anybody know?
Fumes are
On
dangerous.
the on the lithium iron phosphate, I mean, the fumes are dangerous, but also the other things that are burning around it are not safe to breathe.
The plastics and stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think so. I'm reducing the weight of the truck by half. The 1-ton lead acid battery pack in there, which I haven't seen yet. But looking at the videos, it looks like it's really messy to sort of unpack, the way that things are arranged. And there are various people that put videos on and make really elegant, sort of structurally more supportive of the batteries. And one of the things I noticed, it's so heavy. I had a guy with a backhoe hanging straps, and there is some sag in the pack when it's lifted in the balance point, with the straps at two ends, and just wondering how much flexing, as I don't know what's inside the new rebuilt pack. I'm just wondering, how much rigidity the actual battery cases have, and whether that's a considerable risk or not. There's like 6.
Hey, John, is that that's the same batteries that the modules that I just put in my Avante, right? There's
Could be. They're Calb.
I don't think so. Those are
A123.
Pardon?
They're A123 Smith truck, nickel metal hydride, or not nickel metal, but iron.
Lithium iron phosphate.
Lithium iron phosphate, right? That's out of a Smith truck, and it sounds like.
But
this pack is apparently not. I have a bunch of I also bought a bunch of spare. Those batteries, by the way, are really popular. The ones that Thunderstruck cut the other Smith trucks apart. The boaters are really keen on getting these batteries to upgrade from AGM. Yeah. But this Calb pack is using some Chinese-made LifePo batteries.
Oh, okay.
Are they the gray or the blue?
I think, well, I don't know what the latest is, but he seems to have addressed all the issues, and I highly recommend that you communicate by text or email, because it's very difficult to get a question in. It's like it's a torrent of information when you talk to Lanny in person. But he seems to be very adept with electrical, mechanical stuff. And some of you might know that his main job or experience, I guess, was servicing pin setting machines, throughout the U.S. and currently still at his own bowling alley, or the bowling alley sold to somebody. Interesting character, though.
So those Calb cells, since they're prismatic, the actual mechanics of the cell individually are very robust. What I would be concerned about with the flexing of your overall pack would be the bus bars and what sort of flexibility those have, because that's where you're going to have your problems with those. Because if they're the 180 amp hour modules, then they'll probably have an M6 or an M8 bolt top on them, which is fairly robust in the actual cell and in that mechanical packaging of itself. But if your bus bars are either solid copper or they don't have any sort of flex to them, that's where you're going to have problems.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Bruce, how much did that pack cost you?
Oh yeah. Well, it's clearly a lot of work cleaning out the old stuff the way they've made it. So I understand that, but it was $13K, and it comes with a total. It's like a third-party battery management system that has a monitoring screen. It fits into the standard Ranger display, and has its own little booklet, which I haven't delved into yet. So.
And how available are the EV Rangers?
Well, I think Lanny's got some, but last I heard there are less than 400 of them that didn't get crushed or die on the vine, unless, so it might might be an interesting promotional tool.
How big a pack is that? Kilowatt hour.
Weight wise or capacity
Kilowatt hour.
wise?
Kilowatt hours.
I want to say off the top of my head, but I can't remember, but it should bump the range to 125 miles. So
So about 30.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's just under 40 or 35, something like that.
So that's one possibility rather than buying a $50,000 new pickup truck.
Rivians are
there
70.
electric pickup trucks that are available that are in reasonable ranges. I haven't seen anything jumping up yet, and certainly not a lot of used stuff.
Yeah, you'd have to pre-order for either a Rivian or a F-150. No. Or a Cybertruck.
Yeah.
I think the big challenge with the Ford Rangers that I've heard of is integrating new systems with old systems. Just getting displays to work with this new pack, as the BMS communicating with the charger, etc.
Yeah, you're almost better off just getting a standard Ranger and making the conversion than trying to deal with the old electronics.
Mm. So back to the idea of tearing back a Kia Soul.
Yeah. I think I'd like to see a Leaf truck.
Oh yeah, or a Leaf truck. That'd be
Sure.
interesting.
A Leaf up.
Yeah. A Leaf up. I guess I'm selfish in thinking, oh, I live in West County. It'd be nice to go buy mulch or haul brush. These are really small bed sizes. Maybe you'd need to take 2 or 3 trips over a weekend or something. Does that have interest to people, or is it more like, let's go share a $50,000 truck and take it to Tahoe, on alternating weekends or something like that?
I'm more in your line, Sonia, as far as my need. I mean, I just spent 7 days to the point of making myself sick, pulling out bamboo roots. And as you know, bamboo roots have to go to the dump. You can't put them in compost. And so I have a small trash can, and I figure that in about 8 weeks, filling up the trash can, I might finally get rid of the roots. And if I had a small pickup, I would just dump in the back of the pickup, drive down to the dump and dump it.
So that's what I used my pickup for when I had it. Exactly those things, to get mulch, get compost, take stuff to the dump, etc. That was its purpose, and it was being used very rarely, especially in the last year, to do any of that stuff. So it was being I had to pay the expense of registering it and getting it smogged and all that stuff, and which involved a lot of driving of it just to get the smog to pass. And so it became a real frustration. But what I've thought, I mean, in terms of meeting the problem, my immediate problem is to get a small, lightweight trailer and haul it behind my Leaf, and use that as my replacement. But I'm having a hard time finding that lightweight trailer. They're fairly rare and fairly expenve.
Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight has Harbor Freight has a very light, it's actually a foldable trailer, and you can put slats on it, or you can put a cheap wood frame on it. But I want to say they're less than $500 maybe. Super cheap, and you can stand them up on end. Yeah, check it out. It's
and what dimensions would it be?
I want to say that it's basically like a 4x8.
Gotta be plenty. Yeah. Harbor Freight. Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
Check it out. It'll take a little work to actually make it like a hauling trailer, but it's some wood.
Yeah, I want sides on it. I have to have sides on it if I want to get a load of compost or something. It's that's what I would be a typical thing I'd use it for.
Yeah.
Harbor Freight. Okay, and would it come as a kit, or how would it?
You can get it as like the base, and then you have to put like the stake sides and the frame, like the wood base on it yourself. But it comes as basically a rolling frame with tongue, and you do have to assemble it. But doesn't weigh much. They usually have one they usually keep one in the bigger stores, just up against the wall.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, I mean, the thing I was looking at was this Illumina. It's a kind of trailer called Illumina, made of aluminum, and that's what is hard to come by and is expensive.
Yeah.
Do you have a hitch on your Leaf?
Yes, I do. I have a hitch on my Leaf, which now I'm using for a bike rack, but it is but I'm going to get the Leaf, and so I didn't put the electricity in. I'm going to get that done. So I have an electrical outlet to that can pull a trailer and have the electricity go back there. And then I was going to find because my neighbor, this is what my neighbor did. He had a pickup truck and he got rid of it, and he had a Leaf, and he got one of these aluminum trailers. And so that's, I thought, well, if he did it, I could do it. But apparently it's harder to get now. Those are becoming a rarity. And they take the one I would want would take a year if I ordered it to get
Wow.
now.
Wow.
And so I guess that plan. But that sounds good. I would say Harbor Freight sounds great. I'll go check that out. I mean, it would do it for me. I mean, it's done it for my neighbor. He said he gets everything done he needs to get done with the Leaf and the trailer, and so he's very happy with me having made that decision.
Yeah, I think the trailer is a great idea, but why have you to own a trailer, right? So you have a trailer in your garage, you maybe use it 4 or 5 times a year, or maybe more, but why not rent a trailer? Because in that way you have less overall impact, right?
Yeah. Okay. It would need to be very light. It would need to be less than 500 pounds, I think, to have the Leaf be able to do anything with it, if it involved going up and down hills or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, as an aside, I was attending a lecture yesterday. MIT Mobility talked about aviation, and it pointed out that half of the climate impact of aviation is contrails.
Huh. Yeah.
So contrails are half of the climate forcing impact of like intercontinental, continental flights, commercial flights. And so we forget about all these other impact that our mobility has. And so having a truck as the club, I mean, you have to think kind of how long is this for 10 years? Probably you can rent electric trucks in maybe 3-4 years from now, right? So renting is for these low use vehicles. From somebody comes from Europe recently, always seemed to make more sense, right? So why do you need to have a truck in your driveway if you use it rarely?
Yeah, I think the idea of share is kind of the interesting thing, and like gaining some experience and potentially putting some signage on it would be kind of fun, or making it an asset of membership, which I'm not sure is a great idea, but it could be that it'd be an attraction. So yeah, any of those things, and then also just kind of like making it super simple and having insurance wrapped around it, and using like Get Around or Truro or something to just manage a calendar on it or something.
Hey, Bernie, you got your hand up. Why don't you jump in? I hope you're going to talk about contrails.
Okay, you saw my get up. Tesla's setting this thing up where they're going to make their cars available for their owners to rent out, and that would include the Cybertruck, and of course the Cybertruck is also something that is really I mean, some people think it's attractive. I think it's fairly attractive, but some people don't. But it certainly is an attention getter, no matter what you think about it. And my neighbor and I have talked about going in on one. In fact, I've got a deposit in on one now, and going in on one and making it available to rent through the Tesla app, which is supposed to be available by the end of this year. The Cybertruck won't, however. The Cybertruck's now been put back to next year. But we thought we could make money on it and as everybody says, use it the few times a year that we need it and rent it out for, say, $150 a day, when we're not using it, which would be 95% of the time.
The only downside on that part was a guy I was commuting with, I was flying down south with on a regular basis, ended up buying himself a Tesla S model when my plane had to have the engine rebuilt. And he was driving down to Mountain View, and he found that there was a company that did the rentals as well. So he rented it out. And on the second rental, he was now without his vehicle because he had to have the front end rebuilt. So that is one of the dangers with a rental.
Especially with a Tesla, where repairs tend to be slow and parts availability is limited.
And that was his problem. He had to wait a long time for the part.
Yeah.
Well, I think they've solved a lot of those problems now, and the truck is supposed to be indestructible, practically.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like an interesting proposition. I mean, that would be fun too. I mean, I do like Sonia's point about the branding on the side and finding a way to do the rental and everything. How would you arrange the rental, Bernie? Have you found an agency to do it through?
Well, Tesla is taking that on. They're on there. Any Tesla vehicle, they will rent out. Through it'll be an app like Uber or Lyft, and it'll work pretty much just like they do. And you can rent out your Tesla.
And they'll collect the money. They'll collect the money, and then
they collect
the money and pass it on to you.
Right. Take their little cut, big cut, whatever, and pass it on.
So I was in Alaska this summer, and my son rented out a 2013 Subaru for $200 a day, because the lack of the rental vehicles, especially in Alaska, through was it Turo, and they furnish insurance and vet the drivers and everything, and I think he was getting $150 a day, and they picked it up, did everything that needed to be done. So there are already those kinds of things out there now, and covers insurance and everything. So
Yeah, I don't know if they let you create like a private share within it. But if we got something and we were open to, if it was a beater of some sort and we were open to having that and having it on public share, we'd just all know about it more. And we could use something like Turo for the insurance. I do like that part of it.
I think as a promotional vehicle, we'd want it to be a good experience from a perspective of its usefulness, but also as an EV driver. It's like, because you wouldn't want it to be just you wouldn't want it to be a kind of a low performing vehicle, something that's not that interesting, because you want to be able to share the experience as well as the utility. So a more modern cut down EV, I think, would be a desirable direction to go, rather than trying to use an older vehicle and either convert it or make it into something that would work but wouldn't necessarily bring the reliability or the say the refinement of a modern EV to whoever's renting it.
Yeah, and you wouldn't.
I don't know.
You wouldn't want it offline a lot.
Right.
And I don't know if you'd be able to rent a converted vehicle or a cut down vehicle on a public service like Turo. I don't know if their insurance policy would allow that.
You might have to use some sort of, like Haggerty has one, and they'll insure virtually anything, but I'm not sure that it would be the right audience. But there's a whole bunch of them out there that you might be able to try against.
Well, it sounds like we might be a little bit early, unless we can find a simple solution. I like Bernie's idea. That would mean springing a few bucks on it, and I'd be willing to do that too.
Well, by the time the vehicles arrive, you wouldn't be early anymore.
Yeah, I know. But it might be good to see what other pickups start showing up. Because has anybody seen articles about new pickups showing up besides the Ford? GM is going to introduce a pickup as well. These are all large.
Silverado, yeah.
The
I think the
Silverado.
Silverado, right?
Yeah. And so if you look at the Silverado, you look at the F-150, and you look at the
Rivian,
Tesla, the Rivian, all of these are larger pickups. We're at the commercial level. And I think Sonia and I are
Right,
both
yeah.
thinking of the.
I agree that I think
Smaller.
that's a big gap. I think I mean, I find it's odd that someone isn't trying to fill that gap, because I think there should be a substantial demand for a light pickup truck. It would certainly interest me greatly if such a truck came into existence. Or was anyway.
I think if you looked at the European side of things, there's going to be more likely to be something in that smaller range. But US is infatuated with big trucks, so it doesn't make sense from a volume perspective to come out with anything smaller than like an F-150. I think Rivian is the smallest one, and that's a step above a Tacoma and a step below the F-150.
Yeah. There've been some concepts, but I don't, I think Kia Soul had a concept truck, and you could look at it for ideas. But did Canoe have one that was smaller?
Yeah, that one is smaller, but again, they don't really have a release date. I mean, I think they do, but I don't have any confidence in it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that one's more in the line of a Tacoma. It's a little bit shorter. And it's a unique. I mean, it's very, very visible. That would be a unique shape to put out with some logos on it.
Yeah, it would be nice looking. Well, and in some of these cases, I would be reluctant to do dump runs with it at that point. It would be, it'd be like, oh, you should go get ice cream or see and be seen. But
yeah, that's like I mean, there's some conversions down here of like the Volkswagen Dokas that have the drop side backs on them. And it's really a Volkswagen bus pickup truck. But again, it's one of those things where it's a conversion first of all, but also it's one of those things you'd rather go pick up ice cream in rather than use it to run to the dump.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy that my neighbors, there's lots of pickup trucks here, and everybody uses their pickup trucks so they can take the kids to school.
I know. There's an amazing number of pickup trucks on the road. I think the pickup truck is probably the largest selling vehicle in the country. Actually, the Ford F-150 is an incredibly popular vehicle, across the country.
It's the largest selling private vehicle in the United States.
Yeah. So, are we moving on? Because there's something I wanted to mention.
Well, I wanted to make a comment about the truck thing before I move on. One of my thoughts is that it's interesting to me that that the manufacturers think that they need to make a stylish looking truck. What the WTF, man? I mean, is there a requirement for having body panels on a pickup? I mean, why not just make a completely utility pickup and charge a frick of a lot less for it, because you don't have to have all that bullshit, quite honestly. Anyway.
I'm convinced that maybe 10% of truck owners actually have ever put anything in the bed of that truck other than maybe a soccer ball. And so that's why they come with infotainment, leather interior with heated and ventilated seats, because they're buying a luxury commodity, not a truck.
Right.
Maybe a flat screen TV.
Yeah, right.
Maybe. Yeah.
From Costco.
Yeah. It's the only time
Well, you wanted to bring up another topic?
Yeah. I got an email recently from an organization called Feed the Second Line. And what they are trying to do, they're based in New Orleans, and what they're trying to do is set up these kind of island restaurants using solar panels and batteries. So in kind of the depressed areas of New Orleans, when hurricanes hit, they'll be able to have these kind of food islands and places where there's refrigeration and so forth that can help feed the communities. Anyway, they're trying to raise money for this purpose, and so but what they're proposing is to crowdfund solar panels and batteries on neighborhood restaurants, and 40K solar panels and 2 Tesla solar batteries is what they're proposing. Anyway, I think if you're interested, and I've gone and given them some money. It's called Get Lit, Stay Lit is the name of the campaign, and the organization is called Feed the Second Line. Just wanted to put that out there.
I like that. Well, is it for existing restaurants to have kind of this, perpetual ability to keep their refrigerators going?
Yes, it's existing restaurants in the neighborhoods and poorer parts of New Orleans, where the possibility or the ability of people to evacuate is far less because they do not have the means of getting out of town. So they wind up being stuck there and with no electricity, and very difficult finding food and all of that. It becomes very highly stressful. And this would provide them with an island, so to speak. And they have to get them in sufficient numbers so that they could serve these communities. But they're just trying to find a way to get some resilience for these underserved areas in New Orleans.
I could do an update on website work. Yes, okay.
That would be great.
All right. Could I get access to share my screen?
Jerry, you're on mute.
I know I'm on mute, and I'm trying to find the right button. Just a second. I'm looking for the menu thing that is normally there, and it's not there. Just a second. They've changed Zoom again. I thought I left it so that you have access. Did it say no?
I don't have access.
Okay, just a second. Let me see if we can find where I do that. They moved it. It used to be very handy to find it. I'm not sure where I set that up. Anybody know, by the way?
One thing that comes to mind, Jerry, is you've got 2 instances, and does one give you the ability to share and the other instance not?
No, the other instance is a different user. This is actually the NBEAA user. So
so I have the ability to share. So
Yes,
you have the ability to share?
I do.
I thought I made it.
I take it back. I don't. I have the
it's
share button.
disabled once you click it.
No, let me look under share and see if it's there. Oh, there we go. That's where they had it. Got it. You got it now. They moved it.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. All right. So I've been doing a little bit of work on the homepage and some other areas of the site. So this is just a mock-up here of the homepage with the menu. Active menu has the little dots on either side. And you're probably familiar with the interior text, but here's a new element. This is a little area to highlight some particular pages or particular content that we want to highlight with like a visually appealing thing. And we'll have like links to use things there. So this is what you would see on a desktop and maybe a tablet. For a phone, do you have a little phone menu, and things be laid out just a little bit differently, everything like inline, so it'll be a responsive site as it is currently. And I can also show it to you what I've got going on right now on the actual website. Cue that up. Okay. All right, so this is the site in the browser as it exists. We don't have the little cool features thing, but there you can see some of the changes of some of the elements. So this is, right now. Oh, and I can also show you the mobile view. Let me see if I can do it in this way. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so we've got this little menu. It does a cool little animation thing. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to share. Any questions so far?
Looks great.
Beautiful.
That does look really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
My only comment would be, I think the EAA picture logo sort of distracts. Are we required to have the picture logo, or could a chapter of Electric Auto Association be in text below your?
I have to look at the charter. There is something in the charter that talks about the logo being shown and phrases, and I don't know if you need both the logo and the phrases. Now, there is no specification as to the size of the logo.
Yeah, I think it looks great. That small comment, the only thing that kind of stands out, it distracts from the banner, in my opinion.
Yeah, so this banner is sort of a temporary one. It's a little bit busy. I like to go for something that's like maybe a single image. And I previously mentioned that I'd like to ask for y'all's support in supplying some photos. I can set up a form and y'all can submit pictures. We can maybe do like a email message about that. So like ask for that.
That's good.
Yeah,
So is it done in WordPress or?
Oh, this is actually in Drupal.
And is there a way like to put a button on top that links to YouTube channel?
Yeah. So currently we do have like a little footer that will have like, we'll be able to link to like certain things.
Yeah, maybe if you put it higher up, it's more visible.
Yeah, we could do like a smaller version of it.
Yeah, something like that. And then, I mean, Gary said that very few people actually have looking at the films. So the question is always how to publicize the website, how to publicize the social media channels. And so the way I did that with some groups I was interested in, I did the website and we pushed it through social media a lot. So if there's a new article, event, the Facebook channel became very popular because there would be interesting items. I know that's a lot of work, but in order to get exposure and people actually looking at the website, watching the videos, you need to have a little bit more exposure, I feel.
Yeah, it's a good point. What I've found when people are not strong on social networking is that just email to our to our participants would be good too. And I know we can use MailChimp for free from the EAA. I attended one meeting from the EAA about MailChimp, and I use it for my work as well. There might be something simple we could do once the site's up to, make sure.
That would be a good place to go with it.
Yeah, every time we post a video that everyone gets an email or something like that.
What I really like about the site and the way you've designed it, Cecilia, is that I have lots of links to go to lots of different aspects of the material we have for the club. And here I have a place to start. So I don't have to keep everything. I can go here and say, okay, I want to go do this. I want to go do that. And this is the good place for it to be.
Mhm.
Eventually, I think, and it may be here, there actually was a place when you showed it to us where we could link in some other parts where we can get to the management portion of the club as well, and just come to this page and not have to go send a mail out saying, go to such and such.
I really like the font, your font selection.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It's great. When do you think we can go live? You want to get the pictures, right?
Yeah, I like to get some pictures. I would like to do it by next month or next month. I'm gonna make that a goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. Fantastic.
What are you looking for in pictures? You're looking for a picture that we think it would be appropriate, or you want a lot of different pictures and put them together?
Yeah. So yeah, a picture that you might think is appropriate. I definitely want pictures of different EVs, or maybe you with your EV. If you've taken your EV like on a trip somewhere or in a scenic setting, that might be nice. If you've looked at the Electric Auto Association, now Electric Vehicle Association website, they will have like some of these beautiful scenic shots with EVs, and so wanted to have like maybe a similar feel, or maybe just like something with a little more local flavor, like it's like around the North Bay area.
Mm-hmm. The coast in the background or something like that.
I mean, coast is like classic, but we have other interesting locations, hills and interesting architecture and things like that.
We might have some older ones from when we participated in the Apple Blossom Parade and things like that, and that might be good for secondary pages. Yeah, or like if anyone has a picture of Alan's Model S, Bruce's, Lowell's Model S now, but with the stickers all over it. I like the history on some of these, including Bruce's Roadster. All the local dignitaries that have sat in that Roadster.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Teslas are great, but especially not Teslas, since there's so many Teslas. So
yeah.
Seriously, because that is one of the things that when I talk to people, there are those who say, well, I'm not getting a Tesla because they think that it's expensive and it's big and whatever else. And I'm going, there are so many electric cars for you to choose from now. When you're shopping, it's not a question of getting the right electric car. It's the same kind of shopping you did before when you went to go get a car. What was it that you wanted the car? Did you want a small car? Did you want one for 5 passengers? Did you need it for big trunk space? And start shopping that way now, because the decision criteria as to the electric features of it, you didn't ask how big the gas tank was before.
Right. Well, but that's why we spoke about this earlier. I think it would be good. You said there's a place on PlugShare. I don't know. I still think it would be something that we could do as a club about promoting electric cars buying in our in the North Bay, rather than across California, and dealing with cars that really are available, that you can buy. That, as you said, in the situation right now is there's a lot of lack of supply. And so why tell people to go get a car that they can't get?
Well, hopefully it'll break open in the next 3 months or so. And by the way, if I said PlugShare, it's Plug in America that.
Plug in America. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I said, I think that that's possibly one of the things that could be on the website is a link to, just what's available, who, addresses of the dealerships and whatever, just to make it really easy for people to just direct them to this and say, well, here's a place you can find out about what's available. And if you want to buy a car around here, and yes, it's way more than Teslas and Fords.
You're muted.
Okay. Well, you know, yeah.
I'm
Anyways,
sorry
yeah,
about
you-
that. The problem turns out to be Zoom keeps, I've got two screens. It keeps moving my controls away. I have to go find where to put them. I've got the cool links. I don't think I might have modified a few here. One of them is right here, Lowell. And this is actually something I think Sonia, somebody sent to me a while back. And there's a whole bunch
okay.
of links here.
And that's kept up to date.
Yeah, these things,
Yeah.
they are kept up. They do keep them up. And there's a bunch of shopping guides now too. There's one shopping guide I ran into that somebody sent to me where you say what attributes you want and it brings up the vehicles based on the attributes you're looking for. If it was range, if it was, my friend Kim keeps talking about, I need it for the snow. And she's worried about 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And I'm going, well, you can get one with 2 motors. It's got essentially all-wheel drive. I said, but the real thing you want to ask about is a heat pump, because most people don't even think about a heat pump. They're just so used to, I have plenty of heat.
Oh, okay. Then I mean, maybe an alternative is to put these links on the website.
Yeah.
And direct people's attention to them, so they're fairly prominent.
Yep.
And then you can direct people to our website, and there you go.
There's a place in the design associate already thought ahead for doing precisely that.
Okay,
Yeah, we can work on it. I'd like to make a plug for electricforall.org. I don't know if you can filter for cars with heat pumps versus not, but it has all the subsidies and it stays up to date, week by week. So if the subsidies change, you'll have detail, and the detail seems accurate, seems down to the community agencies like Bay Area Air Quality Management District or something like that. And then, you get to see some of the stuff like go buy a Mini Cooper or go buy a, Hyundai Kona or something like that.
Oh, great.
Okay. As I mentioned, our next meeting is October 9th. It's probably going to be online again unless we see the plummeting of COVID continues, and John will give me a clue as to whether we can be together. I bought more equipment, hoping that I can figure out how we can do a good job of being online and present at the same time. I've got an additional screen. I bought another projector. I've got more cameras. I don't have the mixing system that Bruce has, but one day maybe I'll buy the mixing system as well. I'm having fun with that. And I was forced to buy another computer too because mine got too old. Okay, good seeing all of you. And I will stop recording at this point once I find the button.
I have a question before everybody goes. If I know Ryan my boss got a hold of a used Model S, and he's finding that when he turns it off for the night, it loses 20 miles by the next morning or something like that. And he's heard that other people have seen this with a Model S. Is this typical, like low?
Yeah, it's called the phantom drain. The Model S's have I don't know whether other Teslas do, but mine certainly does have a certain amount of phantom drain. It loses about 1% or so a day, sometimes a little more.
There are some things there, John. There's some things you can do about that.
Okay.
And then one of them is the security system runs all night. If you turn that off, that will save you things like that.
Okay.
That's the only one I'm particularly aware of at this point. But
okay.
There is a screen in the security screen on the Tesla that has turn off, and I've been doing that lately. And as I exit the car, I turn it off.
Interesting.
And I don't know. I haven't really, I'm trying to measure whether that is improving the amount of drain I'm experiencing. But I'd have to do some real A/B comparisons, so to speak, and to be able to say for sure whether that's working.
John, the key thing is don't leave the dog in the car overnight.
Because the dog will be playing with the controls.
No, because it'll keep conditioning the car for the dog.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Tell the dogs that are right.
Yeah, you just have to. The dog will put on the dog mode.
All right, y'all.
Is it S and not 3, the Model 3, like Cecilia and Sonia? Or does the Model 3 lose the charge?
I've had some issues with my Model 3 that seem to have come with a software update. The one that Will and others mentioned about the active security screen going, that does drain quite a lot. But I've been trying to figure out what's going on. That I'm finding the car, trying to air condition basically my car when it's outside in the sun, and I'm just wondering if they're putting more restrictions on the sort of the preheating of the battery. And I have a gray car, and when the sun's out, it gets up to over 100 degrees in there, sustained. And I'm just wondering, what's the best approach other than parking it in the garage or something like that.
Yeah.
But
That's a good point. Yeah.
It seems to reactivate itself, so I can go and sort of manually think I'm turning it off, and then of course I think there's a button for the security system, but that keeps turning on every time I get back in the car with my current settings anyway.
If it was a hot day and it was out in the sun, the battery would be cooling itself all the time. I don't see much drain on my car, and I park it in a carport. And I don't have the Sentry mode on, which is constantly activating the cameras if, in my case, squirrels ran around.
Okay, well, thanks. Curious.
All right, y'all. I'll see you all in a month, if not sooner. And if somebody makes it over the Napa, I'm going to see if I can get there to see what's going on with their EV day.
It's December 2nd, you said, or was that?
No, it's September 26th. It'll be in the presentation.
September 26th. I got that wrong. Okay.
Yeah. And look for the presentation. I'll have the message out later today, and you can look at the presentation. It has the details there. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you, everybody.
See you, Bruce.